I'm a very big champion and encourager of courageousness. If you had a good time on the first date and you want to see this person again, lead with that. Text first.
Welcome to Dating Yapps, the podcast where we swap wild dating stories, share laughs, and serve up real talk experiences and advice. So let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Dating Yapps, the podcast where we overshare so you don't have to. I'm your host, Alex Daly, and today I am so excited because I am chatting with the incredible Shade. She is a licensed therapist and the brilliant host of Popcorn Therapy, which is a podcast where she breaks down movies and mental health themes. She is smart, insightful, hilarious, and she's going to be a great person to dig into the emotional side of dating. So, welcome to the pod, Sade.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here, Alex. This is going to be so much fun.
This is going to be so much fun. We have a lot to talk about. I want to know definitely more about your podcast, your likes, your dislikes, some of what you have seen in your professional practice about dating, and would love to get your perspective on that. So I thought a great way to start would be to play a little game to warm up. I would give you a couple of dating scenarios and you can tell me your perspective either from your personal or professional opinion, but I would really love to hear what you have to say about it. Are you game?
I am so ready. Let's get started. What do you got for me?
Okay. All right. So we're talking about dating. On a first date, should you share your lore or just keep it surface level?
Okay. I love this question, and my unpopular opinion and option is to do a bit of both, but I'm going to give you some guidelines around that. When you share the lore or the reasons why you think you are the way that you are, center it around the things that you care about. Let's say, like, you recently picked up a new hobby because maybe you noticed you were spending a lot of time inside, or you were pouring yourself more into work and, like, you wanted to reconnect with yourself. Say that, share that. Why not? If you're going to a concert with your best friend, talk about why music is important to you or what this relationship means to you, or maybe the things that you and this person have experienced together. You can be your authentic self without oversharing completely or
Hmm.
completely offering like your most vulnerable sensitivities that, probably are best to be shared with a therapist first.
Yeah.
But this is how someone can get to know more of the real you without you feeling like, okay, here are all my deepest, darkest secrets. Like, please love me and accept me. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. This is great advice. So, like, talk about why the things you do are important to you versus like word vomiting your childhood trauma on the first
Yes.
date.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think that this can lead to more just like feelings of comfortability with a new person. And they can also be a little bit softer to you if they feel like they're getting to know more about what you care about and what's important to you and the reasons why behind it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because I think it's a hard balance to find, but you do want to find the balance between like how many siblings do you have and like just saying too much. So
Hmm.
it's just like, yeah, how do you find that middle ground where you are being a little bit vulnerable, but you're not just like coming out with your full trauma?
For sure. For sure.
Okay, great. I love that answer. Okay, so next one, you did the first date. It's done. Should you text first or wait for them to text? I feel like this is just a constant debate.
And I get it. I hear where it comes from. I'm a very big champion and encourager of courageousness. If you had a good time on the first date and you want to see this person again, lead with that. Text first. I think that people get a bit stuck around the fear of rejection and the fear of regret. And it sets us up for this race to the bottom of who can pretend that they care the least.
Yeah.
which is oftentimes not why we're dating. That's not
Yeah.
why we're trying to meet people or potentially meet a long-term partner or someone to just spend our time with. Like, if we are committing to at least spending our precious, precious moments on this earth with another person, we want to feel like we're liked and we want to make sure that they know that we like them, you know?
Yeah.
So I encourage leading with courageousness. Yes. Text first.
I love that courageousness. It's like sometimes it's scary, sometimes it's scary to send that text, but I hear what you're saying, and I think that is true because, yeah, we do wanna feel desired, we wanna feel, like, appreciated, and if you're feeling those things for another person, like, let them know,
Let them know. Yeah.
and if you're too much for them, then they can go find less.
Exactly. Like, if someone has a reaction that's like, I think this is a little too much, you have your answer then. That's what I meant by like the fear of regret. I find that a lot of people kind of like ruminate and perseverate over, oh my God, like, should I wait to respond to this text? Like, I don't want to come off as like, I am desperate or whatever. And that's going to somehow drive this person away. If you actually being interested in them is driving them away, you you dodged a bullet. Like that is a huge red flag. Maybe you don't want to be with somebody or pursue someone who's just like, oh, you're too into me. Yeah,
Yeah, let them weed themselves out.
yeah.
Okay, great. I love this. Okay, so next question, when you're on a date, what is more important? Do you put chemistry first or emotional safety first?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna do like wild card a bit and probably be a little different than what my previous answers have made people predict what this answer might be. I think most people experience chemistry first. It's normal. It's normal. Like, the person you're attracted to is the person who grabs your attention, and it's through continuing to learn about them, continuing to explore their inner world or like, what they don't like. That's where emotional safety comes from. And you also letting them explore that with you. And so I think it's perfectly okay and common that like if you're into someone because you like the way that they look or you like the way that you two have banter, you like the way that the two of you talk about just like really silly things, pay attention to that. That's important. You need chemistry for a long-lasting connection.
Mhm.
And oftentimes what happens is you will build the emotional intimacy as you go along. And I'm not like you
Yeah.
know, I'm not saying that emotional safety, emotional intimacy isn't important. I know that it is important for long-lasting relationships. I just also think that the anxiety about like, oh my God, like, is this person really going to be there for me? Da da da. That's really hard to assess when you're still feeling it out and it's very new and
Yeah.
very fresh. And so how do you let yourself enjoy that part without worrying about the stuff that's gonna come?
That is a great answer, and also just, like, not easy. Not easy to, like, suss these things out in the early dates.
Well, so
But
tell me more about that. I wanna hear more about that from you.
well, I feel like sometimes we can be in our heads when we're dating and we're like, do we have chemistry? Are they asking questions? Am I asking questions?
Mm,
Do they like, how does this person make me feel? Like, did this one thing that they say meant that like we're not a good match? Like, you have like so many thoughts in your head. So it's like hard to, I think, prioritize what is going to be important for you to move forward.
definitely, definitely. So I really appreciate your kind of reflection of that because what to prioritize is definitely how is this person making you feel? Are you having fun? Are you feeling desired? Do you desire them? Do you feel like this? I think the problem with chemistry is that people do really try to define it and they
Hmm.
try really hard to like make it tangible, but it's not. It's just like a feeling that you have.
Yeah.
I know that people are probably like, "Boo, we want guidelines, girl. Like, what are you talking about?" And
Yeah.
I hear you, but oftentimes you are looking for a specific feeling that someone gives you, which is there's curiosity here. There's a sense of like fun that also maybe feels a bit romantic or a bit sexual. And that is the feeling to pay attention to. And then if you're noticing like this, maybe some of the ways that this person views the world isn't jiving with the way that you view the world, that's sort of like the next thing to pay attention to, and then make some decisions based on that. Yeah, and I think that there's also something about like trusting yourself to make
Mhm.
good decisions for yourself, and that's super important too. Yeah, I hope that that helps.
No, definitely. Yeah, and that's, like, I feel like a whole 'nother topic that we could talk about is, like, trusting yourself because, yeah, when you're, like,
Mm.
has start asking all of your friends, like, consulting the group chat, then you have, like, all these opinions in your head, and it just, like, complicates things more. But we'll get into that maybe later on. But I have one more little scenario for you. Let's say you've just gone through a big breakup. As we know, it's, like, pretty traumatizing event. Sometimes it takes a while to get over. After a breakup, when you get back into the dating scene, is it okay to date casually at first, or is it better to wait until you're fully ready to be in a committed relationship?
Yeah, I think it depends on the intensity of the previous relationship and how hurt or how devastated you are by the ending of that relationship. Because sometimes when we immediately start talking to a new person after a big breakup, we start dating, it's because we don't want to be alone, which
Mhm,
is fine, like no judgment here. I think the key is to be really honest with yourself about that and about that being the reason why, like, you might be going back out very soon after or, like, being really curious about that. And I think it's also very helpful to have clear guidelines or boundaries about what casual means to you and the other person that you're seeing. Casual, that vague word, beautiful word, I get it, but, like,
could mean
it
anything.
could mean anything. And so being really clear with yourself about what it is you want and what you're looking for, and then communicating that to the other person, that's essential. And it really allows for you to not get into something if you're not ready for it. I think that, healing after a big breakup is very important. Learning how to spend time with yourself is
Mhm,
very important. Oftentimes, again, depending on the intensity of the previous relationship, people build their lives around another person. And so when that person is gone, it feels really, really intense to just sit with yourself. And so you
mhm,
want to allow space for that to happen and to relearn yourself. And, it's okay to open yourself up for new connections, but just making sure that everyone's on the same page avoids a lot of messiness, a lot of hurt feelings, a lot of confusion. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so if, like, you're all on the same page and you're being upfront, you're being honest with what your capacity is at this time, then that's okay, but, yeah, I think I hear you when it's like, okay, explore, like, am I okay with sitting alone for a little while? Am I going out with this person because I just want to, like, not feel my feelings? That's something to be aware of too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely feel for like I've worked with folks who get out of long-term relationships and they were with someone for 10 years. And sometimes that means that they were with someone from the time that they were 24 and now they're 34. And it's like, you're a completely different person. And so are you allowing yourself space to know what you actually like, what you care about, how you want to show up in not just romantic relationships, but also your friendships, your family relationships. I love relationships as like a whole, but I also know that romantic relationships take up so much space. And so there can be like this feeling of a void that needs to be filled somehow. And really, the way around that or the way through it is, yes, by sitting with yourself and getting to know yourself again. That's super, super important for those like after a long term relationship.
Yeah. No, definitely. And you were just touching on like a lot of my experience also. Like I was in a relationship for like 10 years from like my mid 20s to my mid 30s and I was like basically a completely different person by the time that relationship came to an end and it was a big transition and full confession, I that is when I started therapy. It was when I like knew that I wanted to end my marriage but was scared to do it. So that's when I started therapy, and I fully wanted my therapist to give me permission to end this relationship, which I found out they can't do, which is very upsetting. Like,
But we can help you give yourself permission and
yes.
say that I think I want something else. I think I need something else. And that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's a big change, and I think therapy is super helpful in navigating those transitions in life, in navigating those conversations, in sitting with yourself and sitting with your feelings. So I would love to get into it with you. I would say a huge chunk. I can't say like the exact percentage, but a huge chunk of what I talk about in therapy is based around relationships.
Mhm.
So I'm sure that you have so much experience in this arena. And I would love to talk about, like, from your point of view as a therapist, what role do you feel like self worth plays in how we show up in dating and relationships?
Yeah. So, and also I'll disclose too, I have a private practice in Philadelphia. I see clients both in person and virtually, and the name of my practice is literally called the Relationship Space Therapy, or Trust for short. So like I am a relationships girly. I love it so much, both romantic and non-romantic. I think that they, really play a role in how we see ourselves and how we see the world. So when it comes to self-worth in dating, I just want to say that dating is like one of my favorite and tricky topics to talk about because
Mhm.
self-worth comes up in a lot of different ways. One of them being that a lot of us struggle with being ourselves when we first meet someone new because we do want to be liked. We want to be
Mhm.
desired. And unless you already have a great sense of self-worth and self-esteem, you might not feel those things about you. You might not desire yourself or be like
Mm.
attracted to yourself or like yourself.
Yeah.
And what can happen is that people then project a version of themselves that makes it appear that they're more confident or that they're more flexible or more fun, honestly, than who they really are. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like, it's really common. This is where infatuation and passion really shows up at the beginning of the relationship, which is a good thing. We just want to also try to be a bit more authentic about who we are for the long lasting connection because I work with couples, and so I do see that it's hard for people to sometimes sustain some of the things that they were doing at the beginning of the relationship or the
Mhm.
way that they seemed at the beginning of a relationship, and that's when problems can be caused later on.
Totally.
So I think that, self-worth is really important in how we show up in dating and how we want to be treated or expect to be treated by another person, but then also about like the projection of the self that we're creating for the other person.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's so easy to slip into like people pleaser sort of mode where
Mhm.
like you hear like, oh, this person likes rock music, I'm going to talk about how I like rock music, but maybe it's like not really your thing,
It's not.
and you're just like wanting to please that person because you're wanting to ultimately be liked, I guess. Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you feel like that's like a protective mechanism?
I think relationship science says that yes, it is protective, but it's also like part of our brain is playing the game, right? Like if you like this person, if you want this person, then you are more likely to be a little bit more flexible about who you are because you're trying to get them to come closer to you, right?
Mhm.
And we can see this in nature, right? Like with peacocks or, like other animals that kind of fluff their wings and kind of they're like, "Oh, look at me," to try
Yeah.
to attract someone or not someone, but try to attract,
Their fellow
their
peacocks.
fellow
Yeah.
peacocks to come closer to them. So oftentimes that's how I like to think about that projected self that says, "Oh my God, you're into rock music? Me too," because you're trying to appear attractive to this person. So be gentle with yourself. I don't think it's a bad thing or a wrong thing, but just noticing where is that coming from for you.
Yeah.
And maybe that can come out in a different way, which is this person says they like rock music, and you can say, "Wow, that's so cool. I would love to hear you talk more about that because I'm really interested in you."
Yeah. No, that's such a great point. I'm wondering now, hearing you talk about this, if maybe you do have like a little bit lower self-worth and you are like looking for that person to validate you, how can you move from wanting that external validation and chasing it to building up your own self-worth?
Okay, great question. I have a question answer, which is, what is it that you want people to validate about you? You want people to think that you're smart, you want people to think you're funny, you're a good person, that you're hot. What is it that we're searching for in other people? Um, and I get really curious about that part of you that wants that. Like, what is it
Mhm.
looking for? Because annoying answer, you can give yourself a little bit of that. Like, I'm not saying that internal validation is the most important thing or the most accessible thing for people, but if you get clearer with yourself about what it is you're hoping people can tell you you have, right? Then you can start showing up for yourself in different ways. So again, if it is that like you're a good person, right? Like how can you start looking for the things in your life that show you that you're a good person instead of searching for that in other people? If it's that like you're attractive, how are you showing up in ways that you feel attracted to yourself? And maybe that's like
Mm.
physically, but also maybe that's like mentally, intellectually, right? Like, what are the things that make a person cool? And can you start giving yourself more of those things? If it's like, oh, well, taking a ceramics class, like, I would be so in awe of someone who was doing that. You can do that.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think it does make a lot of sense. And it seems it's almost like simpler than we think it's going to be because it's just like, yeah, if you want to feel good about yourself, do something that makes you feel good.
Uh-huh.
Like you're saying, the art class, if you think that, if somebody who takes an art class, if you think that's cool, then you can take an art class and then you get to feel cool. And then you have something to share about yourself when you go on that date. You're like, "Oh, I took this pottery class."
Exactly, exactly. I will say that I've been in a long-term relationship for 9 years now. Um, and so it's a monogamous relationship, so I'm not currently dating or trying to date. I will say though, coming out of 2021, 2022, I during that time period, I finished my second master's. I was working part-time, seeing clients at a group practice. I was working full-time as like a research coordinator, and I was just doing so much work, and
Mhm.
and you know 2020, 2021, like I could just really put my head down and focus on that while having like a partnership, and yes, having my friends, but the world just felt very different. So like coming
Yeah.
out of that, I was like, "W- outside of work, like what makes me an interesting person?" And I had to like really sit with that. I was just like, I don't I mean, I'm really passionate about my work. I love um what I do, and I still had to kind of figure out like, I'm changing my relationship to work. This can't be like the only thing about me
Mhm.
that, makes me cool or makes me feel interesting. And so I started thinking about, yeah, what are the things that I value, or what are the things that I see other people doing that I think are really cool or really interesting or do make me want to learn more about them? And yeah, how can I start doing more of those things for myself so that I feel good about the life that I'm living, that I feel interested in the things that I'm doing that aren't about other people and aren't about work. And I know
Yeah.
it's not a one-to-one ratio there, but it felt a little similar based on the way that we were talking about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, first of all, I do think that being a therapist is cool, like, that's a cool job, there's a lot to talk about there,
There's a lot of social
but
cachet, yeah.
I I am but I'm with you in that, like talking about work is like not the most interesting thing. Like I am such a proponent of talking about anything other than work on a date. I don't think it's interesting to be like, so what do you do? You know,
Mhm.
that's rarely the most interesting thing about a person. And I think it is so important to like cultivate what is interesting to you outside of work and outside of relationships. Like there has to be something else that drives you besides work and relationships. Like what is fun for you? Like if you have nothing to do, what are you going to fill that time with, you know? And that helps like round out your life and helps like fulfill you as a person.
Yeah. I think that from adolescence onward, in about like, let's say it's like every 7 year periods, we are trying to answer the question, who am I? Like, who am I right now? Because we can kind of look down or like have these blinders on for a really long time. And then something changes. We go through a really big transition and we look up and we're like, oh my God, I either lost myself in something or I want to change something about myself and I don't really know how. And
Yeah.
so I think that that also comes up in relationships around self-worth. Oftentimes we're really kind of asking like, well, who am I that makes me, yeah, worthy or worthwhile? And oftentimes like you kind of have to figure that out for yourself. Someone else can't really tell you that you're worthy and you actually
Yeah.
believe them. Sometimes you don't believe them. And so that's really coming from the call is coming from inside the house. Yes.
Ugh, yeah, that is so real. And also that's so interesting that you said that like every 7 years you're trying to like answer this question. And so I'm like, I'm wondering if you can say more about that because I was literally married for 7 years when I realized that like it was no longer serving me. And two of my good friends who had also gotten married around the same time as me, 7 years in,
Oh,
also
wow.
ended their relationships. And there's that saying like you get the 7 year itch. So like what is it about 7 years?
Um, I think it's a long enough time that you are in a different place in your life. So, like, college lasts for like 4 years, right? Whereas opposed to 7 years, you're closer into emerging adulthood, which is like your early 20s. And that's a time where you really are trying to figure out, like, okay, I'm kind of on my own now. I'm kind of, trying to learn what my place is in the world or what I want my place in the world to look like. But also, you have one, a lot of energy to do that, and two, a lot more curiosity. And then I feel like by the time you're in your early 30s, you've learned a lot because you've experienced a lot from your 20s onward, and it becomes more about solidifying, well, do I like the things that I've been doing for the past, 7 to 10 years? Or do I want something completely different? And I have more
Yeah.
confidence in myself and saying that it is okay to want something different, right? Um,
Yeah.
and then in your 40s, right? Like I, I really I'm like excited to get older and also nervous to get older. I think we all can share in that.
Yeah.
But when you hit your 40s, your 50s, you get the kind of, I don't want to say like automatic permission, but like you have just been able to spend so much more time with yourself and probably advocating for yourself
Mhm.
or attuning more with yourself that you get to like kind of solidify more of who you are and the things that you want and not really apologizing for that. So like that's why I said that it's like every 7 years because you probably are completely different than who you were 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And you probably have so much more knowledge about like the person you are, and how to get the things that you want than you did 7 years ago. You probably are also more brave than you were 7 years ago because of all of that. And so, yeah, I'm getting like goosebumps talking
Yes.
about this. I
I
love
love
that.
this.
Yeah.
I love this. It goes back to the theme of courageousness,
Mhm,
where we feel a little braver than we did 7 years ago. That makes total sense.
mhm, mhm. And it's because
I love
like
it.
you grew, you changed. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I just turned 40 and I feel a lot braver than when I turned 30. So
Oh
I think
yeah.
it gets better. Okay. So yeah, I'm curious, like in building your self-worth, Do you think some of that can come from being in a relationship, or do you feel like we need to like build that up on our own before we're able to be in a relationship in a healthy way?
Yeah, I will share that I am a child of divorce. So for a long time, like I let that sort of define who I was in relationships and what I thought about relationships. And then, like I mentioned before, I've been in my current relationship for the past 9 years. And that was really healing for me. Like this relationship has been really healing for me because, I'm not one of those therapists who believes that like you have to love yourself first and then you get that person that like you've been dreaming of. I am a believer of you can enter a relationship and because of the relationship, you can learn how to love yourself more and you can learn how to talk more about what it is you need and what it is you expect from another person. And then when that person can give that to you, wow, wow. That it creates like a new feedback loop for you where, oh, I can ask for things and someone cares about that. Okay, like I know that and I can feel that on a deep level. And so I am a believer that people can heal themselves by being in relationships. It does take a lot of patience and also it takes a lot of self-awareness, right? Like cuz like I said before, like someone can come along and tell you, I think you're wonderful, I think you're amazing, and you deserve all of the good things. And you might have a reaction to that that says, I don't think that's true. I don't think
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah. And you can kind of like push it away or like you're not able to receive it.
You're not
Yeah.
able to receive it. And sometimes when we have that feeling, that is because of self-protection, or that is because like we have something about ourselves that, we think is unlovable, or we think, if someone knew the real me, this wouldn't be accepted, this wouldn't be allowed. And that's your own internal work to work on. But when you're in a healthy relationship, you're going to get more of those reminders from another person who does see you. And maybe that part of you can relax a little bit, or maybe that part of you can heal a little bit more and sort of believe, yeah, maybe that is true about myself, that I am lovable, I am worthy. Wow, what would that be like to imagine?
Yeah. No, I think relationships are amazing teachers. Like they really show you where the work is that you need to do on yourself. And I really think that like every relationship, you learn something about yourself, even if it's like a month or two long, you probably learned something from that person. They probably like held a mirror up and you learned something about yourself. I think it's such a mix of being able to look inward, do the work yourself, and being able to see the person in front of you, like see what they're reflecting back, listen to them. And I think relationships can be really healing, but you have to be in a place to like receive it.
Yes, totally, totally. And I think that that's one part of it. I love that you brought in like the other person too, because you also learn a lot about yourself by how you're treating somebody else or
Hmm.
how you're helping someone else feel loved or worthy or what have you, or attuning more to this other person. You're absolutely right. Like it's a big teacher. And I think with self-worth or doing like healing around that, sometimes it's two people entering a relationship with low self-worth and through it they can gain more. I do think like the advocacy of your needs is a big one. So many people kind of keep what they need or what they want like really held tight to their chest and they're just like, no one's going to give it to me. I'm not even going to try. And
Yeah.
so, like, yes, when you are able to be like a little bit vulnerable and that is received, you get a little braver, again, going back
Yeah.
to that idea of courage, like you get a little bit braver. Or maybe you have more compassion for another person. And yes, maybe it's not a long-term relationship, but it's something that you can take with you where you like the way that you treat other people. And this becomes more about you and a part of you that you feel confident in.
Yeah.
And so it becomes also something that you deserve, right?
Yeah. No, you touched on something so huge. I feel like that was me. I was so afraid to like speak my needs and I was just like, I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
I don't need anyone else. And I was like, so like hyper independent, but it would really like push people away because like if someone's in a relationship, you want more reciprocity, you want to be able to like let someone in, and I was just like so scared that I was just like had these walls up. So like how do you get braver in being able to like speak your needs and like because I feel like the fear of rejection comes up and it's like, yeah, well what if I say it and then they can't do it or they don't want to do it? Then what?
And then what, right? So I'm putting on my therapist hat a little bit, and it's like, yeah, and then what happens if they can't do that for you? How do you process that with someone? How do you let someone know, I'm disappointed right now, without that being something that the two of you have to run from? Or how do you also let yourself disappoint someone because
Yeah.
you cannot be everything. You cannot do it all by yourself. Because if you
Ugh.
do, you will get resentful. And so
Yep.
sometimes you will have to disappoint someone. And then what happens? How do you two want to talk about?
Yeah, wow. I so relate to that. That was me too. I was so afraid to disappoint anyone, but you have to. And then you just have to like be okay with disappointing someone. That was a tough lesson to learn for me.
Yeah,
I'm still
yeah.
working on it.
Um, I love that you're bringing up though, like the fear of rejection, the fear of disappointment, because all this is also so normal. Like everyone feels this way. And so when you're asking about like how to get better with sharing the need or sharing like the vulnerability, again, like I would get really clear about what it is you're asking for. If it's something like, I'm trying to think. Last night, my partner and I, we took my mom to go see the new movie Sinners, and I was driving her car, and we were driving through Cherry Hill. Long story short, I do not do well with driving cars that are not my own, and
Uh-huh.
so it brings up a lot of anxiety for me. My fiance sitting next to me is on his phone, which is fine, but I was like, I really need you to help me figure out, like, the GPS on this car. Yeah.
You're the navigator. If you're in the front seat, you're the navigator.
I was like, I need this." But on the inside, I'm like, "Do I even ask? Like, is it stupid to ask?
Yeah.
Am I gonna just bother him? Like, I know he wants to just get to the theater too, like, but I was just like, "No, I am getting so uncomfortable, and I can feel it in my body. I just need
Mhm.
help. I just need
Mhm.
help right now, and so I am going to try to ask for help." Right. And so I got really clear with myself in that moment, and I was able to do it. And then, you know what happened? He was able to like put his phone down and be like, "What do you need? I'm here." And I was like, "Thanks."
Isn't that so weird that when you ask for what you need, you might get it?
You might get it. I love that. We always worry about what if we don't get it? But sometimes, oftentimes, you're probably going to get it if you ask for it.
Yeah, and you're a lot more likely to get it if you ask for it than if you don't ask for it.
Mhm. So what can help with like the fear is honestly practice. You can practice in small ways, right? Like I brought up that example because it was like a small ask, but I still had a lot of anxiety over it. I still like didn't want to be somehow a burden, for
Mhm.
asking for help with GBI. Like this is how we make things so big in our heads. And so just asking for like more small things, and it doesn't even have to be with someone you're dating. It could be with like a friend, or it could be with like a family member, someone that you're close to, a neighbor, right? Like for the most part, people do want to help you. And so that's
Yeah.
oftentimes the lesson that we have to learn too, which is if we have a small fire, somebody wants to come help put it out, and we have to see that a lot to believe it.
Yeah, yeah, we need the evidence.
Mhm.
And you said something about like, okay, I realized how it was making me feel in my body and like it made me realize that I was feeling anxious and stuff. So how do you stay connected to yourself so that you are able to like show up and speak your needs within different relationships?
So I will say I am an internal family systems therapist, or
I
internal
love that.
family. I love that you know what that is.
Yes.
I am IFS trained,
No bad parts.
no bad parts. And so because of that, I find that's been really helpful in getting me to reconnect with myself and just noticing when these parts of me show up. And so I know that I have an anxious part. I know that she's all about trying to keep me safe. She's trying to figure it out. She's trying to, and oftentimes can push people away because she's trying to protect me and she's trying to help
Mhm.
me. And I know what it feels like when that part shows up in my body. I know that like my chest gets tight. I am not breathing correctly. I know that I feel like a pressure in my head. And so I think in general, if people try to notice like what parts of me show up when I'm dating or what parts of me show up when I'm in a relationship, and how do I relate more to those parts of myself? How do I notice when those parts are present and what the feeling like, if I'm feeling like my people pleasing part is taking over. What am I doing? What's happening? What do people see even when that people pleaser is showing up? Do they see me smiling a lot? Am I like trying to make a lot of eye contact and just being like, yeah, totally, whatever you want? Like, how do I act?
Yeah.
And so it is building more of that curiosity with yourself of noticing just when these parts are present and when they're taking over
Yeah.
a bit more. Yeah.
Or like what do I feel in my body? What's showing up when I have something that I need to express, but I'm not doing it? I feel like that was a big one for me, just like picking up on those cues.
And that's what builds self-awareness to try to do something differently.
Yeah. Ooh, there's so much. There's so much that we could get into. I feel like this has been a therapy session already. It's amazing. So I know that you also take your therapy hat into your own podcast, which is a little bit a lighter topic about movies. So I'm curious how you got started in that and what made you want to start your podcast.
Yeah, popcorn therapy is truly the love child of me and one of my best friends. She and I, Chelsea and I, we have known each other since we were 15, and we have always, let me preface it by saying, did you watch Lost when it was
I
on TV in
didn't.
Sweden? We watched Lost from the first episode it aired and until the end of the show, which didn't end until we were like in college.
I
And
remember how huge it was.
for sure. And we were the we were the cute kids who would watch the episode, take notes about the episode, and then call each other on the phone and be like, "What does this mean? What about this part? This person said this thing. What do you think it means?"
Yeah. And this was before you were a therapist.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And so we have always had that relationship around media, a little bit about like celebrity culture too. And so we love movies, we love TV shows. Was raised by I Love Lucy. Like, so I think that I know that like popcorn therapy came from a place of us already having this being a part of our relationship. And
Mhm.
then we were like, why don't we talk about this in a way that other people can consume? And so she is like a huge movie buff, has seen so many more than I ever have. And I am able to really talk about like the emotions or talk about the ways that movies, I believe, are one of our greatest forms of storytelling. And so
Mm.
when we go to see something, we are probably looking for what it can tell us about our lives or what it can tell us about our worlds, or we're learning something about our world. And I think that that's really, really special about movies. And so we were able to just kind of come together and make that our central focus of our podcast.
I love that. Yeah. And there's so much to talk about in terms of like mental health themes in movies. And, I had asked you for some recommendations, like what are some of your favorite episodes that you've made? And you pointed me towards your one about Gone Girl. And so I looked for it and immediately, like, you had me at the title, which was something like an ad for divorce. And I was like, oh my God, I need to listen to this episode. So I'm curious what your process is for choosing the films that you guys want to break down.
So we usually try to look at the month ahead and decide if we're going to do a theme month. So Chelsea loves Halloween movies.
Mhm.
She gets the month of October. I love Christmas movies and holiday movies. I get,
So much
December.
so much to talk about there.
I know. Our Family Stone episode, chef's kiss. And for like our birthday months, we both get the whole month to pick what movies we do. She'll typically do a lot of comedy and a lot of horror. I'll typically do like drama or movies that are more mental health based, like Girl Interrupted. Last year we did The Snake Pit, and I did a whole deep dive on the asylum system in America and what that used to look like. And we also make space for months like Pride Month. We are really big on the pod of just like making sure that we're representing folks who oftentimes don't have their stories told
Yeah.
and just trying to do a good job with that. So we usually start there, and then my job is to hone in on, is there a specific mental health situation that's happening in this movie? Sometimes there isn't. And if there isn't, then I'm looking for relationships. I'm looking for, ooh, what does this movie say about friendship? Or what is this movie, trying to tell us about the way that we do date or the ways that romantic relationships change over a lifetime, or what is this movie saying about like the development of a person over a lifetime if relationships aren't a part of the movie, because we've done things like Bring It On, which was a hard episode but very fun.
Why was it hard? Say
um
more.
Torrance, I chose to like see Torrance through the viewpoint of this is a person who has like a lot of values and is trying to live up to the values that they have. And so it took me a little bit of time to just like parse through that to make sure that I was making sense. But
I love that movie. It's such a like classic. Was it like late 90s or early 2000s? It was, yeah,
oh my gosh, what a different time. Different
it
time
really was. I feel like in a lot of ways though, Bring It On was talking about a lot of themes a little bit ahead of its time.
for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of like inequality
Hmm.
and injustice in terms of that, a
Yep.
lot of also just like privilege and how people learn that they have privilege over other
Yep.
people, especially, kids, teenagers. And yeah, Bring It On is a good one to return to.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, there's so many relationships in movies. I feel like that that just gives you a ton of material to talk about already for your pod, but are there any, maybe it's in the rom-com category, or any dating thing movies that you have thoughts on that you want to share?
Yeah. Ooh, I love a good rom-com. I love it so much. I also think as a millennial woman, rom-coms gave us like a little bit of brain rot sometimes when it came to
Oh,
an
yeah.
approach to relationships. And so
They did us dirty for sure.
and the things that like are meant to be acceptable or cute or not red flags that totally are, girl, like get out. Like what's happening? So that's something that I have fun like taking apart a little bit in movies that we do,
Yeah.
where I'm just like, I don't know if he's kind of like following you around with a boombox, like maybe that's not the cutest thing in the world. Like you want space. Absolutely not.
Yes, your pod is so fun. I'm also obsessed with your voice. Like, I will listen to you talk about anything. So, everybody needs to go check out Popcorn Therapy.
Thank you.
Okay, so before I let you go, I'd love to just get some like rapid fire takes from you, like quick one sentence or two, if you're up for it.
I'm so up for it.
Okay, so really high level, what is your go to advice for coping after a breakup? Like, what's an easy thing that someone can start with?
We talk about this in our Forgetting Sarah Marshall episode. Delete the photos.
Mm,
Delete the photos, baby. You do not need to go back and like scroll through. Delete
yeah.
photos, unfollow them on social media. Your brain
Oh,
literally cannot tell the difference between I'm seeing this person who used to mean a lot of love and care, and we're broken up now. So
yeah.
do yourself a favor and just do that.
That is a good one. I think I'm a fan of like the mute feature on social media. If you're like not ready to press the unfollow, like at least mute
Mhm.
them so they're like not popping up and you're not getting that like stress hit every time you see them come up.
Totally. I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. How do you move on from a situationship that's no longer a good fit?
Honesty is the best policy. If you are not feeling it, as an adult, there's a respectful way to say that and to name it. And to just mention like, hey, no hard feelings. I think maybe some of this has run its course and I appreciate the time we've spent together. I'm wishing you all the best.
Yes. Quick and simple. I love to hear that. Easier said than done sometimes, but I
Yes.
do like that advice. Okay. What is one boundary you recommend setting in early dating?
This is a good one. Rapid fire. Okay. One boundary. I'm gonna go with expectations around time.
Okay.
I think what I oftentimes see is that people will give folks like a lot of opportunities to kind of waste their time. And so
Mm,
that becomes your responsibility to manage and your responsibility to say, hey, like we've so far moved our hangout 2 or 3 times. I don't think I'm going to do that again.
yeah.
So again, wishing you all the best, but I'm gonna close this chapter. And I'm not saying like it has to be a hard and fast rule, but just like some expectations over, if you already thought that this is how your evening was going to end and it's a pattern that keeps happening, you do get to say, I'm not really interested in this right now. Thank you.
Yeah. Not for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, do you have any last piece of dating or relationship advice that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, please know that this is so hard for everyone, that most people feel like they're going through the trenches. And it's also very fun, right? Like let's try to reconnect with the fun of getting to sometimes be a different version of yourself or sometimes, trying to like connect with yourself by getting to know somebody else and trying to just lean more into the fun, even though yes it's hard, yes sometimes people disappoint us. You can always change your situation though, and you can always change the expectations that you have of how you're going to be treated when you're dating someone, when you're in
Yes.
a relationship. That is never set in stone, so please stand in that truth.
Yes. Bring your courageousness out.
Yes, yes.
We're coming back to it. I love that. Sade, thank you so much for all of your wisdom and sharing so many gems today. This was amazing.
Oh my gosh, I hope like I could be helpful and I hope that it was just as fun for everyone else to listen to as it was for me to do. I'm so glad that I got to be here, Alex.
I'm so happy to have you. This is so much fun. I feel like I learned a lot. I feel like I got a little therapy session out of it. It was amazing. So, yeah, where can people find you if they want to listen to your pod or share anything else?
Yeah. So Popcorn Therapy can be found most places that you listen to podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify as well, and some other places. Google us. Or you can hit us up at like Popcorn Therapy Pod at gmail.com if you want to talk about movies, mental health, relationship things. And, if you are looking for a therapist in the Philadelphia area, please visit me at trst.care and learn more about my practice.
Amazing. Amazing. You have been so wonderful. I so appreciate you taking the time to talk and yap. And thank you for everybody for listening. If you love this episode, please share it with someone you know. And until next time, we will talk to you later, friends.
Bye.